Welcome to another edition of Geopolitics and Empire. Support the transmission. Your support is crucial. The best way you can do that is by becoming a paid subscriber on the Substack. We do every week private group Zoom chats to shoot the breeze on what's happening in the world. I also do a weekly roundup of the headlines and commentary, which is popular. People are very much enjoying, and sometimes we bring back past podcast guests to do a live Q&A with paid subscribers only. You can also donate. I do need the assistance, so Wise, Donor Box, Buy Me a Coffee, that sort of stuff. You can also purchase a consult if you just want to chat with me about anything. And our sponsor this month is still Mikkel Thorup's Expat Money Summit. It's for free. It's online very soon, October 7th to the 11th. All you need to do is register. The link is in the description, expatmoneysummit.com. You get the replay for 24 hours for free. After that, you need to upgrade. If you want to upgrade, you get $100 off using the promo Empire. I'll be participating. Most of the headline speakers have been guests on my podcast: Ron Paul, Scott Horton, Doug Casey, and many others. And it's all about internationalization, Plan B, second, third, fourth, fifth passports, and that sort of thing. And do check out my affiliates: Legal Shield, EasyDNS.com, Wise Wolf Gold, Above Phone, Escape the Technocracy, and others. And leave a podcast review if you haven't. Why haven't you? And joining us for his maiden voyage on Geopolitics and Empire is the editor of the Sociable, Tim Hinchliffe, who covers the shenanigans of the unelected globalists. Bienvenido al podcast Geopolítica e Imperio, Tim.
Muchísimas gracias, Hervoy. No, great to be here. I've been a fan of yours for a very long time and been paying attention to geopolitics and empire. And wow, what an honor.
If I'm not mistaken, I interviewed a bunch of times. I had you on my old, now defunct, unfortunately, TNT radio program. If I'm not mistaken, I think I was the first to ask you on there, and it was a lot of fun. Any thoughts on the demise of TNT?
Well, it was an excellent run. I mean, the first time I appeared on TNT, it was with Rick Munn on Locked and Loaded. And I think that was in February of 2021, and that was nice. That was thanks to someone called Seek for Truth on Twitter, at his account at the time, and made the nice connection. And it's been a wonderful ride, and I always looked forward to being on the shows, talking with you, and as of late with Johnny Vedmore as well. But yeah, it's those business models, and how to get money and financing for these kinds of things is difficult. But the TNT was just, the hosts like you and everyone else, so incredible. And the quality of guests was just, it just blew my mind.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And for people who are not aware of your work, I mean, you're all over the place. You're frequently on Bannon's War Room and other places. And I love your work because the stuff you cover is part of my obsession, the Algorithm Ghetto. And for people who are not aware of you, just real quick, who is Tim Hinchliffe? What is the Sociable? And what is he doing in Latin America? I believe you're somewhere in Latin America.
That's right. Yeah, no, I'm a dude. I'm American. Been living in there's the rooster crowing in the background. I'm living in the mountains of Colombia, just outside of Medellin. I got into journalism as being an intern for a publication called Colombia Reports. I used to report about the paramilitaries, the rebels, and everything like that down here. Then I went to West Africa, in Accra in Ghana, was a reporter for the Ghanaian Chronicle there. So I cut my teeth doing that. But for the past almost 10 years, I've been working on the Sociable, which is all about tech and society. And that's where I've been covering the World Economic Forum since 2016 was the first time. And then once 2020 came around, the Great Reset, I went full in on that, and I've been reporting on that stuff ever since.
All right. Yeah, your stuff is great, and people should follow you on X and the Sociable and subscribe there. And I want to get your big picture thoughts as to where we're at. The United Abominations Summit of the Future Dystopia just wrapped up, and you've been covering that. And you post a lot of great clips that really it gets to the point of what they're doing and where they want to take us. I mean, did you sit there and watch hours upon hours of this stuff?
Yes, I do. So it's sometimes people just lift it without the content, the stuff I share, without kind of crediting. But I do. I sit there and watch through everything because that's how I can absorb and learn and know more about it. Like I don't really skim through stuff. It's just like, no, this is what's going on. I got to pay attention to this. And so, yeah, and thanks for mentioning, like, trying to cut to the point. But when I do pick out these little clips and things, a lot of times it's because I intend to use it in an article. So it's to make a point. So I get a story idea from what I'm listening to. I pull out these quotes, and then I try to line that up in a way that it makes it easily digestible. So I don't, sometimes the articles go a little longer and stuff, but they're not as in depth and investigative. Like, well, this is the origin of this. This is where this came from. This person's connected. Sometimes I do, but it's more of just like, here's what's being said. Here's what has been said before, and then this is how it fits into things. So I try to keep it a little more concise and try to make it, easily digestible for an audience.
I think we also have to bring up this point. I've seen you bring it up on online. Some of these outlets, like the People's Voice TV or Slay News, there's still some credible people that I consider, in alt media, sharing stuff from the People's Voice, and that stuff is so horrible. We must disassociate ourselves from it, because they'll share articles like that will say, Klaus Schwab came out and said we need to enslave the entire planet, and there's no source. Klaus Schwab would never say anything like that directly, and then people share it. And the guy, he's got a video channel as well. I stay away from that. Slay News often steals your stuff without attribution, and often they don't have sources. I look through the entire article. There's no source, and this is important. Any comment on that?
Yeah, because for one, People's Voice, the headline it never matches what's actually in the body of the text in the article. So it's always just clickbait to start with. And then they if you ever hear the terms, like you said, like Klaus Schwab orders governments. They don't have that. No, that never ever happens. So that's just complete BS. And then when they do the presenting things for the People's Voice, they say, well, a whistleblower said this, and then they use some kind of fake whatever voice as if it's a whistleblower, which they just completely made up. So yeah. And then with Slay News, that's where, again, they make stuff up, but also they mix in a lot of true stuff. They are the ones who are kind of more like the disinformation kind of thing, because they mix truths with lies, and they do rip off my stuff, but then they come to a completely different conclusion, and they rip off other people's stuff as well. Yeah, of course. So I mean, yeah, the name on that one, I think it's Frank Bergman or whatever. I don't know if he's a real person or not, but putting out so many articles, so much content day after day, the same byline, it's not possible. It's not humanly possible to do that. So yeah, they just they make stuff up. They mix in real reporting with not real reporting, and to me, it's like, what's the point of these publications, if you want to call them that? To me, it's like they're fodder for fact checkers. This is like what gives people excuse to go after whatever narrative. If I'm reporting something that's accurate, and I'm trying to get to the truth, and I'm citing everything like that, but then this other publication comes in, says a lot of the same stuff, but then twists it in a way, then the fact checkers go after that to discredit that, and then me, and then every other kind of narrative that goes with it. So I think I don't know if they're just after money from advertising and clicks, or if they're part of something else that's just supposed to bring everything down.
No, I think what you said, that's part of the psychological operation. They do that all the time in the Telegram channels. They try to associate me with neo-Nazis or a Russian agent or conspiracy wacky theory. And so then they can, once they paint you, they can say, oh, look at this guy, fake news, deplatform him or whatever. He's an extremist. And I think that's the point. But we also have a lot of grifting. And by the way, could you let us know? I've seen you allude to this. I don't know the entire backstory, but and I think you're a model of what we should all be doing. Those have been my principles with Geopolitics and Empire. I do my weekly wrap up for paid subscribers. I use only good quality sources, and for the guests that I have, I want to have good quality guests. Were you ever? I think you said some of the stuff reporting that you did was actually reach the upper echelons of the globalists. Did they actually name you or get angry with you?
Yeah, well, there was yeah. So when it came to you'll own nothing and be happy, they didn't name me personally, but it was World Economic Forum managing director Adrian Monk, and he came out with a story a couple of years ago or a year ago. I can't remember now, but it was about the origins of the phrase "you'll own nothing and be happy." And I had written a story a little bit before that, saying that the Great Reset needs the circular economy, so you'll own nothing and be happy. And I said that it was a top-down agenda from unelected globalists trying to shape the world in their image. So what Adrian Monk, the WEF managing director at the time, he's no longer with them, he hyperlinked to that article that I wrote, saying that bad faith actors are criticizing the World Economic Forum's coverage of the circular economy, calling it a top-down agenda from unelected globalists trying to reshape the world in their image. And then he also said that the phrase "you'll own nothing and be happy" came from a screenshot, came from 4chan, an anonymous 4chan account, and a screenshot culled from the internet about the Jew world order or something like that, an anti-Semitic account. But then he also goes on to say in his own article that it was, well, yeah, it came from this essay from Ida Auken, the Danish MP, or Ida Auken, I don't know how to pronounce her name, which was, welcome to 2030, I own nothing, and life has never been better. So that's where it actually came from. But yeah, he referred to my work on that as being a bad faith actor, because he hyperlinked that text, bad faith actor criticizing this, to my article. And then it's funny because a couple months later, the World Economic Forum, I believe it was the World Economic Forum, came out with another report, and I published this as well. They say exactly that it's a top-down agenda. Anything that has to do with the circular economy, which is product as a service, so all products become services. So that's how you own nothing. You rent everything. Every organization saying this needs to come from the top down. This needs to start with businesses at the top. These start with governments at the top. So everything I said was correct. But he had taken aim at me while disseminating his own disinformation. So I don't. He's gone from there now, and he was a journalist as well. I don't know what he's doing now. I think he's on LinkedIn, just publishing weekly things. But yeah, that was a fun ordeal.
Yeah, they gaslight you. That's their big strategy, and I guess that's one of the reasons you're probably somewhere in the mountains of Colombia. But don't worry. I don't know if you saw. I just saw the video the other day. Endural, one of these Palantir-like companies that are throwing billions into AI and future warfare. They just unveiled the new Ghost X, very silent, long-range, weaponized autonomous drone. So, one of these days you'll be tending to your garden and you'll be none the wiser, and poof, they can, it's like Black
I've
Mirror.
seen those videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen those videos of even just I think in Ukraine or whatever, just the drones coming in and circling around and taking out. That's nasty stuff, man.
Вражеская. Ух, сука, противный звук. И, по-моему, она по мою душу. Пиздец. Сука. Рэп включайте, она прямо в завод влетела. Фу!
And yeah, like those whatever Peter Thiel back thing, obsessed with Lord of the Rings. Anduril, that was the sword that came from the shards of Narsil or whatever that was reforged for attacking and killing to kill the bad guy. And then Palantir, of course, was the seeing eye that gets and spies on everything. So very appropriately named.
For me, what comes to mind is I just finished playing Diablo 4, and I think in Diablo, was it 2? One of the demons was Andariel. So it's kind of like an Andariel. Andariel. But so in my recent last week's, I think, paid subscribers commentary that I did on Substack, I actually used a lot of your stuff. I thought you were like half of the my analysis, and I think you really summed it up. In the last few weeks, the clips that you put out were basically, the goal is to electrify all the things, internetify all the things. Everyone must have a smartphone, and then digital ID, and a few obligatory key apps like their bank or CBDC or a vaccine certificate or whatever. And the story this morning that I woke up to that just made me think of what you were saying the other day was this is from Rebel News in Canada. Amish community fined nearly $300,000 for failing to download the Arrive Can app. And so basically my response there is that the Algorithm Ghetto is inclusive, which means nobody can be excluded from it, right? And so your thoughts on all of these developments.
Oh yeah, you're right. The first thing to do with the whole global digital compact that came from the UN and the Pact of the Future, electrify, get everybody electricity, get everybody connected to the internet. Then you get them digital public infrastructure, which is digital ID, programmable, surveillable digital currencies, and data exchanges. And then, like you said, everything being inclusive, because we don't want to leave people behind. So you need to be a part of this system, because if not, then you lose out, you miss out. But it's digital ID. They talk about inclusion, so it's digital inclusion, but it's like physical exclusion as well. Like, how do you opt out of these things? If you want to opt out, then you're opting out of. Basically, they're saying that, well, you can't participate in society. So it's almost like no one's going to force you, but if you don't do that, then you can't have a bank account. You can't get online. You can't prove who you are. You can't do all these things. So even in the WEF's own documents as well, they say digital ID is all about. It's also exclusionary in nature, and it allows it opens up a whole new world of what information and services we're allowed to access, or conversely, what is restricted to us, so that we can't access. So yeah, it's they say leave no person behind. Well, then you look at the Amish, like, well, we don't want no part of it, and then to get fined for that. Oh my God! Well, then that's actually that's if they don't want to use the word force, that's a hell of a coercion, a coercion, or something like that. I don't know what kind of word you make up for that.
And I mean, it's moving so rapidly. Here in Mexico, I mean, we can talk about this, the whole 15-minute city thing. They call it smart cities. They call it resilient cities. I live in a resilient city. Just a few weeks ago, the Mexican government announced they're going to start dividing Mexico City, massive city, 20 plus million. They're going to start dividing it into multiple 15-minute cities. Other mayors around Mexico are coming out on their Twitter accounts saying, one guy in Nuevo León, a mayor, says, hey, we're going to make our town a 15-minute city. And then, I'm just giving an example for Mexico. People look, they can find in their country, I'm sure they're going to find the same stuff. Mexico City's cash-only tortilla shops, 18,000 plus. It was only cash, and now, guess what? They've ventured into fintech, it says, and they've got the digital payments now. And then the craziest other story was in one state of Mexico, a Chinese company is coming in, investing almost $1 billion for smart housing. And they're little pods. Like if you actually read the article, they're literally like, the containers that are put on the ships. They're little pods, smart pods. They're going to build out entire communities with these smart homes. And it's really accelerating. And so, I mean, your further thoughts on what they're building here and the speed with which they're doing it.
Well, the term digital gulag, algorithm ghetto, those terms, I'm starting to use them now. The first time I ever heard them was from you. I don't know if you're the one credited at coined the phrase, but it's a hell of a good phrase. There's hella good phrases. So first of all, you talk about 15-minute cities and digital IDs. At first, it's, of course, convenience and everything like that. Why would you need to leave? But then later comes, well, no, you can't purchase things with your programmable, surveillable digital currency because that's pegged to your ID outside of this little 15-minute area. So that's one of the steps. And then another one, what was the second part you were talking about? It was about in Mexico, what's also going on.
Well, so now many places that were cash only, they're bringing the tech, like for tortillas. Now it's, with your phone or contactless or credit card, and then you get smart homes.
Right. Again, so yeah, that's one. Yeah. So that's again, once pegged to your digital ID, then that's your finances as well. Then you will only be able to purchase things in these certain areas at certain times, and the government or whatever, or even private businesses as well. That's the tricky thing about it. During lockdowns, even when government couldn't restrict things, they could say mandates and stuff like that. It was actually a lot of private businesses were the ones who were enforcing things due to CDC guidelines or guidance from the World Health Organization or whatever government was saying, we're going to enact this. But it was never like a law or something at least in the United States, I don't think. But it was private companies were just really happy to get on board with it. So once those programmable, surveillable digital currencies come around and digital ID and 15-minute cities, then you're really boxed into that digital concentration camp, that digital gulag.
And again, if people go to your X, well, before I just mentioned that, Karen, I was going to say Karen Kingston, Karen Hunt, I think you're familiar with, who was a regular guest of mine on TNT. She wrote a great piece recently on AI on her Substack, and she alludes to this. She says the only reason, basically by putting us into such prisons controlled by AI, they hope to find a way to escape theirs, which I think, that touches on transhumanism, and some of these Silicon Valley freaks are looking for immortality. And, she says, how will the tech gods achieve this, they must have access to every human on the planet. They must lock humans into communities that they can't get out of, both in the real world and in the virtual world. This ensures that AI is fed a continual stream of real human data, corralling people into 5-minute cities in the real world. For example, in the virtual community, in the virtual world, is a good way to achieve this. You often report on Queen Maxima of the Netherlands. I call her Queen Maxima Tyrannia. And she's talking about, she's praising digital public infrastructure. And you put in parentheses, that includes digital ID, programmable digital currencies, mass data sharing. I call it digital proletariat infrastructure. And someone in the comments, I shared that, and I don't know if this is true. They said her father was the minister of agriculture in Argentina under a dictator, and tens of thousands of people were kidnapped and murdered under that regime. And so I totally wouldn't be surprised. And
what adds to the excitement is that we can see the impact going far beyond inclusive finance. DPI can also support health, education, and sustainability. This is good news for the SDGs. There's not one development goal that DPI would not spur to some degree. That is why I'm so delighted by the progress of the 50 in 5 campaign. It is a pleasure to join you all for this milestone event and to see so many countries take part in this promising initiative. Over the last few months, with my partners, we have co-created a forthcoming policy note on the foundational building blocks for financial inclusion in the last mile. Unsurprisingly, we find a crucial role for DPI. Responsible implementation for DPI will be key to delivering on the report's call to action of reducing half of the 1.5 billion people that are still financially excluded by 2030 and by 2/3 by 2035. So please, let us share our experiences, learn from best examples, and make this digital transformation truly work for everyone. I thank you so much, and I wish you all success in all your endeavors. Thank you.
Thoughts on that? And also, you're seeing now country by country. Israel was just reported this week. Israel is going to consider, this is Jerusalem Post, consider limiting ownership of precious metals. They're getting rid of the biggest banknote, I think 200 shekel note. And it's for your security, right? It's for your safety. It's for your security, right? And it goes back to what you're saying earlier. You won't be able to use cash, even to buy tortillas, as I said earlier. And so every purchase transaction is going to be monitored. So it's going to be for tax purposes. They're going to tax you to death, tax us to death. And then they're talking about limits, like in terms of how many, the limit that you'll be able to transfer to friends or family or for a purchase. In the Jerusalem Post article, they're talking about, and they're lowering the limits like 1,000. They wanted like for $1,000, you would have to like ask the tax authority to approve like a simple transaction, And so your further thoughts on all of that.
I would start with Queen Maxima La Tyrannia. She's she's from Argentina, and she talks about, well, I grew up down there in Argentina, and I know what poverty is like. I know what it's like for the ordinary working campesino or whatever. And then she also says, like I shared another a post from, I think it was early this year at Davos, when she was saying, no, I'm a bureaucrat. That's what I do. And so, yeah, she's true to her nature. I mean, at least she's honest about it. She said that digital ID was good for knowing, who got vaccinated or not. So the whole vaccine passport stuff. And from there, she's praising that digital public infrastructure, which I always, whenever I post about digital public infrastructure, I do try to put in parentheses or try to highlight what that actually is, because it is. I mean, literally, digital public infrastructure is digital identity system, fast payment system like programmable, surveillable digital currencies, and massive data exchanges. That's the basis of it. And then, who was it? Nandan Nilekani from India, the old digital ID architect there with Aadhaar. As you alluded to earlier, that's the what are the tools of the new world? He said to the IMF spring meetings, like everyone needs a smartphone, everyone needs a digital identity, and everyone needs a bank account. Then everything else can be built upon that. Everything else is just programmable, and that keeps you in that open air prison.
Yeah, I remember that clip, and Aadhaar is important. I had a guest from India recently. He was talking about gold. Great book that he wrote. Highly recommend it. His opinion was that he lives in India. He said, half the people don't have electricity, and he said he's not confident that CBDCs will be successful. He says they'll try, and this is a discussion I have with a lot of folks in independent media, where you might know I'm pretty doom pilled, and I try to look at things realistically, and I think there's people who just they can't handle the doom that's rolling our way, and they're like, they're going to try it, and it's going to be hurt a lot of people, it's going to cause a lot of damage, but I don't think they're going to succeed. I just see them, Tim, succeeding. Like, look here in Mexico, every little by little. Like I've mentioned this before. A few years back, they force you to turn on geolocation now to access your bank account on your computer or phone. Now their tortillerias are getting digital payments. They have the vehicle emissions police now. I saw the other day right near my home. It was like a green police, climate police, giving a ticket to someone who didn't do their vehicle emissions test. And up until last year, we didn't have to do this in Mexico. And now you do. And if you don't, the green climate police are going to fine you. And this is now rolling out. And so I just see them advancing. They might, do, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and then keep moving on. But I see them being successful. Your thoughts?
Well, I feel like I'm kind of running away from it, like kind of 1 step ahead, or at least I got a head start being in the mountains of Colombia, but I know it's coming. It's like I can run away for a while, but this digital creep is really coming upon me. Same thing happens here as well with the green police. The emissions is something that especially this president has really cracked down on. Gustavo Petro here in Colombia, he's a socialist, and he's completely involved with the World Economic Forum. I mean, the previous president was as well, and he was supposed to be to the right. Ivan Duque. He was also a WEF frequenter. And so, yeah, I got a ticket a couple years ago. I've got a 1988 Mazda, which yes, you have to pull the choke out to start it, and you can put water in the radiator. And it's an older car, so and gasoline down here. I mean, they don't. It's not. They don't purify it or regulate it as much as they do in up north. But my car is not designed for the kind of emission standards that they're doing. So I got a ticket. I was like, oh shit. All right, I got the ticket. So I need to go to the mechanic and fix this. I went to the mechanic. The mechanic goes, no, the people who gave you the ticket, they just screwed you because your car is not fit for that. Like, it can't do that, what these standards are. So it's like, again, it's like you can't force people like legally to do things, but like whatever you have, if it's not up to code, which is like everything, not up to standards, like if your term, any kind of digital thing or whatever kind of laws or whatever things that systems are being put in place, there's always going to be an update to it. You can go into transhumanism as well. If the brain computer interfaces, you need a software update. You'll always need to be updated. And if you're not up to date on whatever thing, then that's where they get you. So it's like, if you say it's so convenient and so fine right now, just wait a second. Just wait till like 6 months, a year or something. They're going to implement some kind of tyranny, and it's going to really come back to bite you.
No, I mean, this is a really important point. So they just declared your car illegal. And I know someone, an older lady here, a friend of ours, her car, the same thing happened to her car. It was declared illegal. It didn't pass the test. There's nothing you can do. It's illegal. Your car now has been declared by the authorities, by the green police, by the world government here in Mexico, illegal. And then I had on, I guess, Kate Mason from Australia. They're going to be doing this for everything now, for your homes. Like in Australia, they're creating these carbon ratings, star ratings, I think 5 stars. And by default, most homes out there are like 1 star, 1 point something. And in the UK, I've seen reports where they're forcing you to upgrade your home to make it more green, and it's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars that no one can afford. And our homes are fine; like no one needs any of this. But the goal, I think, is to get you out of your home, to take away your car, to take away your home. And so that I can foresee one day in the future where either you'll be priced out of owning a home because it's just going to be so costly because of this green madness. Or I don't know how they'll do it. They'll just say, oh, your home is declared illegal now. Sorry, we're going to have to expropriate it.
That's another one of the things of the going back to the Global Digital Compact things about where they're just talking about getting people basically electrify and internetify, connectify everything. So that's like the start to get in order to access services and goods and stuff like that. But no, that's going to be applied to the home. It's going to be applied to your vehicles. That's why they want to get rid of cars like mine. Not just, I don't think it has anything to do with that. I mean, they use CO2 and net zero and carbon emissions, all that as the excuse. But no, we need to get you first electrified and then everything hooked up to the internet. So then they know where you're going, where you're driving, get the Internet of Things, all these devices, all these sensors, all these things connected, talking to one another. And yeah, basically, the whole defund the police movement and stuff like that. Well, even though that came from one area, one side, maybe it was a whole, concentrated effort, because what it did and what it's doing is making it so that the technology becomes the police. And then, as we saw during COVID, like neighbors started policing neighbors for breaking lockdowns or whatever, curfews. And so, yeah, it's just electrify, get everything connected to the internet, all of these devices talking to each other. Then, and in the home as well, get rid of gas, because, well, you can't have gas stoves because you can't hook that up to a meter. You can't monitor that meter. Then you can't tax that or fine that or say that it's now illegal. Like that you're using an illegal device or whatever. It's like, Jesus, I've got a little campfire pit over here. I'm wondering if one day they're just going to come here and just, nope, we got to take that out and we're going to install a camera. If you try to put another fire pit over there, we're going to come after you.
Well, I think what you said, that this is, for those of us that have for years studied technocracy, as Patrick Wood was he spearheaded that research, scientific dictatorship, algocracy, also, as I like to call it. I think that's even more specific. Nick Bostrom has talked about that. They don't need politicians. They don't need police, because they have the technology now that's replacing that with AI and drones and the cameras from space that are high resolution that can just zoom in, and they're recording so they can go back to last year, whatever month and hour, and zoom high resolution into your home and see what you were doing. And so they won't need Javier Milei in Argentina, right? He just announced he's rolling out AI pre-crime policing. Everyone, left, right, libertarian, whatever, third way, they're all carrying that out. And any thought on that? Like, at this point, and I did a great interview in 2021, I think, with leftist Todd Miller, who talks about the border industrial complex. People need to go get his book and go back to that interview. And he said, and he's a leftist, and he goes to these expos and he says, like, dude, what I realized, they're scaffolding this globally. So the border digital control systems that they're implementing TSA in the US, that's just going now online in EU. So now when I go back to the EU next year, the entry-exit system, ETIAS, I have to fill out social credit forms for the rest of my family who are not European citizens, pay a fine, and wait to see if they'll accept me. They could technically say, oh, your father is a dissident. Sorry, we're not approving you. You can't go to Croatia. This is the future we're going in. And Todd Miller said, the U.S. government and these agencies, they have offices all throughout Latin America, Middle East, Asia, helping other countries to onboard these systems. So effectively, you're going to have a global prison planet system, and every country is going to strictly control who can exit, the citizens who can exit the country. So you'll have to ask for permission to leave. I think that, like what we saw in COVID with Australia. Australians had to ask permission to leave Australia during COVID, or permission to go to exit or entry. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, the digital identity system, like he said, is like stacking on top is scaffolding and things. Yeah, because they've tried to put that into place in so many different ways. Looking at contact tracing, looking at vaccine passports, then looking at convenience, looking at cybersecurity. If there's a cyber pandemic, looking at climate and climate refugees. They say it's going to be a bunch of people coming over, be it conflict as well, wars, all these refugees or asylum seekers, as they call them, which always happens to be military-aged men, not really many women and children. It's bit by bit. And then once you talk about the border again, and Whitney Webb has done great work on this, is that that's another reason to install this digital ID thing, is because, we've got all these problems that we created by design. And so now here's the solution again. So here's our digital gulag solution. And even, when you're talking about going through airports and things like that, I opted out. I traveled recently from the US to Colombia and back. I opted out of the scans. I opted out of the facial recognition. TSA, actually, they were really cool about it. But just as I heard from, Derek Bros, Conscious Resistance, Last American Vagabond, and the Independent Media Alliance, he was just detained in Great Britain for how many hours just because of his shirt and trying to opt out of that. So that's just in the UK. I mean, it's worse elsewhere. So it's coming.
I just want to backtrack. I'm curious what happened to your car. So are you just driving it? Because I know how in Latin America you can still get away with a lot. And
oh yeah,
has that resolved? Or are you just driving your car for now? Like whatever, you don't care.
Well, I just got a ticket and I went and paid that. And but it was we have checkpoints here. We have little puestos de control. So and they're just kind of random. They just stop you. Mostly they're going after motorcycles because there's a lot of motorcycles that aren't registered or whatever. So yeah, they just check my stuff. But this one actually happened to be an emissions check test zone that they just set up in the middle of the highway as I was going to get groceries and coming back. So yeah, they stopped me. They did the test, and they said yeah, your emissions, whatever the gases, were not up to standard and code. And yeah, and like I said, I went to the mechanic and said, well, it's impossible. So yeah, the only time that they actually get stopped, they have to physically stop me for that. Now, another thing they have here is cameras for speeding stuff, which I hate. Because I got into some trouble with that a few years back because I was going to work, going into the office in Medellin, and there was a time for about a month that I didn't even realize what it was, and I got fined quite a bit for that. And the whole way of getting a driver's license here was so easy. All I did is I went to a driving school in a little tiny pueblo called Rio Negro, which is actually where Pablo Escobar was born. If he grew up, I went to this little tiny garage bodega driving school. I said, "Hey, I want a driver's license," and they asked me, "Do you know how to drive?" I said, "Yes." Okay, pay 600,000 pesos, which is like $150 at the time. Come back in 2 weeks, pick up your license. So I didn't have to go through any of the. I didn't know about the speed traps and things like that, and the use of cameras. But I've since learned.
Here in Mexico, all I had to do was park a car, and I got my Mexican driver's license. But the same thing happened to me during COVID. They set up again. They're building out the smart city, and I was none the wiser for a while, and they put up cameras where I didn't know they were, and I literally got like 20 speeding tickets. But the cool thing about Mexico, Latin America was, in the U.S., they accumulate. If you get like a second or a third speeding ticket, you can get your driver's license taken away. You pay massive fines. You have to do re-education courses. That happened to me once when I was younger. And here it's like the fine is like $40 or something. But if you pay early, you pay $20. It's like literally $20 fine.
Oh, wow.
And you can have 50 fines and just pay them. Nothing happens. And so that's what happened to me. But and I have the craziest story. I bought, without knowing, a car illegally in Mexico. It was from another foreigner, and I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do that. But I was able to drive it for many years without a problem. And then finally, I got a Mexican policeman, transit police, who wanted a bribe from me. And I told him with glee, this was a week before I was moving to Kazakhstan in 2017. And I told him, take the car. Like with glee in Spanish, I'm like, take it. And he was standing there looking at me because they don't want to work. They don't want to tow your car. They want money. Like, give me the bribe now. And I'm like, I don't pay bribes. I'm like, take the car. And he's dumbfounded. He's like, I don't want to do the paperwork and call the towing. And he's like, I'll buy it from you. And so he ended up giving me money, and he's driving it illegally. So imagine the traffic police. The car is illegal. It cannot be nationalized because of NAFTA, Tratado Libre Comercio, USMCA. And he's driving it illegally, but it's the state, so they can do things legally.
Yeah, well, something similar happened to me. Like, okay, so I've got a lot of tickets accumulated from 2018 just because of that. But they're more expensive. They're about $100 a piece, and I haven't touch that. I don't know if any Colombian authorities are listening now. I don't know if I should have said that, but in order to renew my driver's license, but driver's licenses here are renewed every 10 years, so I got to renew mine in about 2.5 years. But in order to do that, so tickets are pegged to the car, the license plate, and I guess that's pegged to the owner, but it's not pegged to driver's licenses, except for when you have to renew it. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen in 2.5 years, but I did go to when I did pay off some of the tickets that I did have. I went to the driving school, and you're supposed to take those classes, driver's courses, whatever. No, I didn't have to do that. All I had to do is bribe the person there, and then they skim a little off the top, and yeah, everything's taken care of. But yeah, that's what I do appreciate about down here. It's like the Wild West a bit. You can get away with a little bit.
Although I'm wondering,
and maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm so against digital ID, because if that was all centralized and things, they would know that this is connected to this. Then you connect this to your Visa, then you connect that to your bank account, then you connect that to where you're working, where you live, and then they can pinpoint and go after you that way. So I don't know. Maybe my whole agenda against digital ID is just me being mad at the speeding tickets.
I think they're trying to close that loophole, though. I think they're trying to make what we're doing, living outside this tyranny, much more difficult. As they bring in this technocracy, even the police themselves may not even be able, even if they wanted to, they wouldn't be able to skirt the system, and they would have to enforce it. And by the way, you mentioned earlier, I hold in high esteem. Everyone, no one's perfect. Everyone, guests have different views on different things, but I hold in high esteem Edwin Black, who in May of 2020, I asked him to come on, and he's the guy who coined Algorithm Ghetto, and that's my favorite description of the social credit system, the cyber gulag, digital gulag. I've heard electronic concentration camp, and basically, like I've said before, they're building around us this virtual digital ghetto, because they can't build it with bricks and mortar. Too expensive. But if they can just, as you said earlier, geofence, if you leave the zone, your money doesn't function, you can't board a plane, you can't get on the train, you don't have a car. That's a much cheaper way of managing the global police state. And maybe to ask you about the end run around speech, because this is all connected. Thought crime now is being legislated in the world, but especially in the West, where we have the most free speech, or we had, and you've talked about this, misinformation. You got all these bills now: misinformation, disinformation, hate speech, terrorist speech, extremist speech, malinformation. You're right, but we don't like that you're right. And people are getting visits now from the authorities. Jeremy Kauffman, who founded Library Odyssey, I interviewed him on TNT. He ran for governor, I think, in New Hampshire. He just got visited for thought crime, something he posted on X by the FBI. He told them to take a hike. People in UK, in Germany, all over the place. And so for me, I read that as they're legislating now thought crime. So if you think off the reservation, you're going to get a visit from the feds, you can get fined, or you can go to jail. And it's absolutely insane. And so your thoughts on that. And you also mentioned on Sociable, you have this article. I like how I love your comments on X. You quote tweet the WHO and TikTok comms, where they partnered, TikTok and WHO. And you say TikTok agrees to be the WHO propaganda arm for 1 year. WHO partners with TikTok to censor and crush any information that goes against the unelected globalist narrative. So thoughts on the end run on free speech?
Yeah, that's the goal. Is it's even part of the Global Digital Compact of the Pact of the Future, and the UN actually came out last year hoping for member states to get on board with this voluntary code of conduct when it comes to what they call misinformation, disinformation, and so they're trying to tell everybody, like, step by step, how only anything that goes against Agenda 2030, the 2030 agenda for the Sustainable Development Goals, is to be stamped out and is to be suppressed and put down. John Kerry, I put out a couple of clips of him today. It was from earlier this week at the World Economic Forum Sustainable Development Impact meetings, which went alongside the UN this week. And he was talking about disinformation. And he said that the First Amendment was was one of those the major blocks to just stamping all this out. And then he went on to talk about, so what we need to do is with the next election, we need to get the right people involved. And so what does that mean? Like, are you saying that, okay, we've got the First Amendment, you don't like disinformation or anything that goes against what you say, and normally, do you have no sense of irony or understand why the First Amendment was put there in the first place? It's because of people like you. It's because of your kind of what you're trying to install on speech and restrict everything. So, but yeah. So John Kerry, that's one thing that had to do with climate disinformation that he called.
It's really hard to govern today. You can't, there's no, the referees we used to have to determine what's a fact and what isn't a fact are kind of, been eviscerated to a certain degree. And people go, and that people self-select where they go for their news or for their information. And then you just get into a vicious cycle. So it's really, really hard, much harder to build consensus today than at any time in the 45, 50 years I've been involved in this. And there's a lot of discussion now about how you curb those entities in order to guarantee that you're going to have, some accountability on facts, et cetera. But look, if people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block to the ability to be able to just, hammer it out of existence. So what we need is to win the ground, win the right to govern by hopefully having, winning enough votes that you're free to be able to implement change.
But with TikTok and the United Nations, ain't the first time that they've been collaborating, because back 2 years ago, this week at the same WEF meeting, is when Melissa Fleming, the Undersecretary General for Global Communications, that's when she declared, we own the science and the world should know it, and the platforms themselves also do, and that the United Nations partnered with Google to suppress or manipulate search results having to do with COVID and climate. But she also mentioned during that speech, that her talk there, with Adrian Monk, by the way, which is the same ex-WEF managing director, but she said that that they had partnered with a lot of big tech companies, TikTok included, on something called Team Halo, and that was where they just trained doctors and scientists, the UN, to say what they wanted them to say, and then they propped them up on TikTok, gave them blue in X, Twitter as well, gave them blue ticks and tried to give them all that space and saying, this is the authoritative source. This is what you need to pay attention to. These are the right people. And then even after that, she admitted, Melissa Fleming again, that the reason why that they go after influencers is because nobody trusts the UN. Nobody trusts the unelected globalists. And so they figure that, well, if we can manipulate these influencers, maybe, I don't know if they sling them some dough, pay them or whatever, but as long as we can get them on board, then they'll do our messaging for us. So yeah, with this this new partnership with TikTok and the World Health Organization, what they're going to do is once again train influencers. They're going to go after what they call misinformation, disinformation, and so and TikTok is actually donating $3 million. Half of it is going to be like an ad, something to do with ads, but an actual $1.5 million to the WHO in these efforts. And as a result, I don't know why TikTok is getting on board with this. Maybe it's because it's part of the Global Digital Compact and the UN wanted them to get on board, but also because in the United States, they went after TikTok and divest and things like that. So maybe this is kind of like a middle finger to the First Amendment, free speech and stuff, but I don't think so. It's probably more about money and influence and power. But yeah, it's not the first time that the UN and big tech has gotten together, and the WEF. It's one whole mess.
Yeah, and I think it was Fleming just the other day at the summit of our dystopian future, as I like to call it, that Alex Newman of New American, he's been on the podcast. He's great, and I've been on his program. I think he confronted her as a journalist, and I
Yep.
saw a clip, and she refused to answer. And it's like that just shows you how they lie through their teeth. Oh, freedom, democracy. You can't even approach. Oh, you're not from the approved media. Get away here. Shoo, go away.
That's exactly right. That's what happened. Okay, yeah, because she asked like, oh, the New American or whatever, like Liberty Sentinel. Well, I don't know what that is. I can't answer that. I've spoken. I went on his show as well, Alex Newman. And he told me that, which is really flattering, is that on the whole digital public infrastructure thing and the 50-5 campaign from the Gates and the UN Foundation, he said that my research was really fundamental into his own. So that was like a big, oh, wow, that was cool. But that whole we own the science thing, that was another story that I broke back in 2022. What I do love, though, is that, I mean, all right, on Twitter, on X, like my following now, it's like at just under 6,000. I really like flying under the radar quite a bit, because then I don't get a whole lot of flack from that. But I do like planting these seeds, and seeing where they blossom and grow elsewhere. I mean, eventually, sooner or later, it's going to come back to me. I'll take responsibility and with joy, of course, because I stand by all this. But it's really fun to see like these little things, how they manifest in real life, and when people get confronted like that, and just to see them squirm and run and hide, and like in the case of Melissa Fleming. No, it's not to be selfishly, it's kind of gratifying.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I do want to ask, you wrote a recent piece about Cobra Commander Klaus Schwab, but before getting to that, there was the Atlantic Council had these Global Citizen Awards, and it was just interesting. And I think not enough is talked about when it comes to the Atlantic Council. I view everyone focusing on the World Economic Forum, and I view actually NATO and the Atlantic Council is like the upper echelons of this world government brain. And there was a photo, Giorgia Meloni of Italy was there, Elon Musk. And it's funny, you look at the photo, it took me you really have to like watch the photo for 10 seconds to figure it out. In the far right corner is Cobra Commander Klaus Schwab. And next to him is a very thin and sickly looking Albert Bourla of Pfizer. And, Meloni is there getting an award saying she's a leader. And I'm just, to have Musk there with Schwab and Meloni, she's a total globalist muppet. It's for me, and I view Elon Musk as the same system. And there actually have been people in alt media who contrasted, Elon Musk, I think, and Klaus Schwab, or they did Klaus Schwab and Alex Jones, where they found that like the Great Reset is the Great Awakening, where I kind of feel like there's no, apart from us little folks all scattered around the world, I don't see any saviors. I mean, not Trump, not Putin, not Elon Musk, not Javier Milei, not Nayib Bukele, who said, in El Salvador, like, we need to copy the EU and make a Central American union. Your sort of thoughts on this? Do we have?
Well, with Meloni, again, she, and just like Milei of Argentina, they started off like with their campaigns of being anti this globalist and things like that, but they start to show their true colors after time. I don't know if you know this account that's from Argentina called Terapia Liberal.
I think he follows me. Yeah, he does good work. Yeah.
And he covers my stuff as well in Spanish in his Argentine accent, which is really cool. But we've had some conversations back and forth, messages, and he was basically telling me that, well, what you should always know about a politician is a politician is a politician. They're chameleons, So he saw right through Milei in the beginning, and was saying all these different things, and how which is very similar to in Italy, but what she was saying at first, but now she's become just another a muppet, as you say. And with Elon Musk, the thing is, it's like one side hates him for one thing, the other side hates him for another thing. So I imagine, if you're from the left in the United States, let's say, you hate Elon Musk because like free speech or hate speech and things like that. To me, it's like whatever. But if it's not, and this isn't even the right side, I guess. It's kind of like more the center of like, or not participatory side is the whole, no, we're creating the everything app. We're getting digital ID. We're getting transhumanism. We're hooking everything up to the hive mind and all that shit. So it's like, if you're going to hate him for something, like maybe go for this, like talking words, free, hate speech, maybe, I don't know. But look at this other thing, but they don't care about, the one side doesn't care about that. The other side doesn't care about the other. But either way, it's, I don't trust Musk at all.
Yeah, I just had Dave Grohl again in Foo Fighters. I saw them perform many years ago in Chicago, and My Hero, great song. But I had on Scott Armstrong recently, and we talked about he went full COVID fascist, and now he just cheated on his wife, and it's just like there's no heroes. I don't feel like there are really any heroes, and we just got to do the nitty gritty on the ground, surviving day to day. And any other thoughts? You wrote again, Intelligent Age. About Klaus Schwab, just yesterday announcing collaboration for the Intelligent Age, about the dumbing of humanity and rise of smart technology for mass surveillance and censorship that limits our decision-making capabilities. Any other aspects of this global digital totalitarian beast that we are examining that are important for you?
Yeah. So for what Klaus Schwab, he tests out these ideas. It's happened a couple times now. Before he goes and names what's the next theme of the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos, he did this in 2022 at the World Government Summit. For all these years, it was singular, World Government Summit, until this year. So in 2022, he said, history is truly at a turning point because of all these crazy things that are going on in the world. That was in, earlier in the year in 2022. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, 2 months later, because that year they had Davos in May, and the theme was history at a turning point. The same thing is happening again this year. This year at the World Governments Summit, plural, first time they do it plural. He said, we're now entering the intelligent age, and now the next theme for Davos next year is going to be collaborations in the intelligent age. And so what this is is just intelligent age. It's because he's just recycling and regurgitating fourth industrial revolution, which is another term he made up back in 2016. At least he says he made it up. Having to do with blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and all that. And why he calls it the intelligent age? No, it's because it's all these machines that are getting smarter while we are getting dumber. And then we regulate, we delegate all our decision making to these machines. And he, in the example of how he arrived at his conclusion that the intelligent age is what he called the new dawn for humankind, which he said at the World Governments Summit this year. He got that from talking back and forth with Chat GPT. So, I mean, he was already, it's personified, like the example, like it's in and of itself. You're relying on this technology as something, and what he's doing is just what's an echo chamber. He's just saying, I think the intelligence age is all about this stuff, blah, blah, blah. What do you think, ChatGPT? Oh, yes, the intelligent age with all these technologies, that's a new dawn for human civilization and humankind. And he's like, oh, yes, tell me more, ChatGPT. I'm going to feed you more of this BS. And so he's feeding this algorithm with all this stuff. And again, the intelligent age, he talks about smart cities, sensors, and things like that. He talks about what's going on in healthcare and how these algorithms and things know more than humans and are in every kind of industry that technology is outperforming humans in every way. So when you talk about an intelligent age, what do you actually mean? Like, what intelligence? It's not human intelligence, it's machine intelligence, and it's all about surveillance, censorship, and then taking away, limiting, minimizing your ability to make decisions.
It just came to me something we forgot to mention, which I think was important. Again, I'm going back to my paid subscribers, weekly headlines and commentary. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. I send that out every weekend with funny clips and news sources and what I think. I do analysis of a few pages, keep it really concise of what's the most important thing that transpired during the week. And I've had people say that alone is worth the entry price of becoming a subscriber to Geopolitics and Empire. we mentioned earlier, what they need is electrify all the things, internetify all the things, digital proletariat infrastructure, and something that you pointed out in one of the clips, and this was mind blowing as well. The smartphones. I don't think we mentioned this. That you had a clip of this guy saying that it's so cute. The unassuming name, Handset Affordability Coalition. That the World Economic Forum and World Bank will be working to get the price of smartphones down to $20, or if you can't afford that, you get a loan so you can buy into your own enslavement if you can't afford the $20. You know, those are my words. And so your thoughts on how important. I think the smartphone is key, because you see everywhere you go now, there are, you know, if you're, especially in the urban area, if you go about to do daily life activities, like you were saying earlier, there are places now in the world where they don't accept cash. So you need your phone to pay, or to read the QR code menu, or to go use public transport, you know, or now when you go fly, they're getting rid of some physical forms of identification, right? And they just, well, you know, it's going to be just read your face, or, you know, show your digital driver's license on your phone. You got to have your home phone with you. Your thoughts on that?
You know that there is more than, and we have heard this many times today, that it's 2.6 billion people that are not as fortunate. They are not connected to internet, and predominantly to mobile internet. Now, why is that? I mean, we know that people, these 2.6 billion people, the vast majority, 95+%, live beneath a mobile broadband coverage. So we don't need more stuff. We don't need more base stations. We don't need anything in the sky either. It is just there to use. But they can't use it. Why? Well, it is all around affordability. And we have done a lot of research on this topic. And the biggest barrier is handset affordability. It is the cost of this device, this little device. So we need to bring down the cost of the device. We know roughly $20 is the sweet spot, and we're not close to that. $20 might help some, but we still have issues. So the next step we need to do is to increase access to financing, to make sure that you can actually use the handset as a collateral and borrow money to buy your first handset, sort of like you buy a car or similar thing. And thirdly is to reduce or even remove the sector-specific tax. The handset is not a luxury item. The handset is something that is a true necessity. So those are three things that we should do. And from GSMA, we have a handset affordability coalition that has been up and running now for a year. And we're very happy to have Doreen and ITU on board, as well as the WEF Edison Alliance, and also the World Bank helping us to reduce the handset cost and helping us to make sure that we can get good financing.
Yeah, and the thing is, on the UN Action Day 2, UN Some of the Future Action Day 2, which was on the 21st of September, yeah, it was somebody who was talking about inconspicuously handset affordability. Yeah, because he said phones, but they didn't necessarily say smartphones. But one of the key things to getting people connected to the internet is, well, the problem he said was that it's not a problem of if there's available Wi-Fi, because really those systems are pretty much all around. And in other documents that I've seen from UN, WEF, other places, they do talk about one of the best ways to get internet to people is like through a Starlink, an Elon Musk Starlink kind of system. But they never mention him because they don't really like him that much because of X and things. So the internet's all around. And it's going to just be even better. The only problem is that, well, we just need people to get the devices, and they need to be affordable. Just as you said, $20 is a sweet spot. And like you said, and like I mentioned, is that if you can't afford the $20, it's like the Miranda rights. If you cannot afford the $20 will be appointed to you with a loan and payback services, maybe with interest as well. So once, going back years, I remember there was something about like a drive, or maybe it was Verizon or some other kind of service provider that were saying like, no, let's just give out smartphones for free. Why not? Because these things, okay, yes, they're made in sweatshops. People are jumping off the roofs in China and stuff to make these things, and the people who mine them are children and in Africa, and for slave labor and stuff like that. But no, let's just get these things, people, get them cheap or free, because you are the product. You are your data. You are the product. So it doesn't matter. This little thing, whatever. Your data is worth billions times more than this, and that's the whole point of it.
So we can see most people have smartphones. Internet is I've got a Starlink. It does, just like the internet is useful for stuff. It's also a two-edged sword. It's used. It's the worldwide DARPA web to create the prison planet. Yeah, okay, but you can't get angry with me anymore having a Starlink than me using the internet now. But the electricity question, I don't really see them building out bigger capacity of electricity around the world. Really, do you have any thoughts on? It seems very precarious, the electric grid, and anywhere you look here in Mexico and United States, and you see the grid going down often, and they're rolling out EVs, and Thomas Massey is famous for saying, he's an MIT scientist, congressman, said to roll out the EVs as they say they would like to, you'd have to quadruple the current electric grid in the U.S., which is insane. It's impossible. It's never going to happen. Like, even to double it would be insane. To quadruple it, no, it's never going to happen. So your thoughts on if they'd be able to manage this dystopia with the current grid, or how you think they're going to square that circle?
It's a two-tiered system, because even Larry Fink from BlackRock, going back a few months ago, earlier this year, at another one of those special meetings of the World Economic Forum, he was saying that, in order to power AI data centers, you need like so many more gigawatts. You need enough to power cities, just enough to power AI data centers. And where's that power going to come from? At the same time, he's bragging about how we're bringing renewables to all the developing countries, like solar and wind, but we can't have solar, wind, and intermittent power when it comes to AI data centers. So what's the solution? Everybody is saying nuclear. I think are starting to fire up 3 Mile Island again. Microsoft trying to get. When I look, I've done another story on this as well with what it takes to power these data centers, and what it takes to bring nuclear power to everything. And what it comes down to is, and another thing they said at the World Economic Forum is, these data centers are going to take up prime agricultural land. They're going to take up massive amounts of water. But the only data centers that are around are all in developed countries where they have this infrastructure. There's other places that were like getting rid of nuclear, they can't. So now they're kind of screwed. But at the same time, they're pushing for all those renewables in developing countries where they're not going to have the capacity at all to deal with it. So yeah, nuclear is the way. They talk a little bit about geothermal or whatever, power, but they kind of do that in passing. It's kind of like, we'll do this and lump that in together with nuclear, just kind of like how they lump together misinformation and hate speech. It's like, well, they're actually going after one of them more than the other. So yeah, nuclear is the way forward, and that's why I see people like Bill Gates buying up all this farmland, and see all this water consumption and things like that. Is just like, man, they're getting ready for something that they know that they need to power it. At the same time, they're telling us to reduce our carbon. I mean, of course, nuclear is one of the most carbon, neutral, net zero kind of things in play. I always thought that the Greens, the people would never go for nuclear, but now when they're saying like, oh crap, we got AI, what we're going to do, this is the only option that we've got available now. So now let's try to spin this around. Let's try to reverse 20 years or 30 years or whatever we've been saying no nuclear, and just kind of say, well, now it's a good thing. And if you don't like it, you're a white supremacist.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, I think the digital proletariat infrastructure, as I'm calling it, for us will be the sporadic renewable solar and wind. So it'll be like South Africa, where half the day, a third of the day, we don't have electricity. Meanwhile, the aristocrats, they get their nuclear or they get the grid. And I've posited before, because it's hindsight is 2020. So as we go further along all of this, and you look back, in some ways, it almost seems like the real agenda behind climate change maybe was to convince us, like, they need this energy for this AI dystopia and the data centers. And so really the real goal was about taking our consumption, decreasing it, and taking that then difference and sending it over to the AI data centers. And I had a Monica Perez. We do our monthly roundtable. She said she's never heard. I've never heard anyone else posit that apart from myself and I think herself. And I've read articles. Some states in the U.S. Like 25%. I was in Virginia or somewhere. I don't know, Georgia, whatever state. 25% was going to the AI data center. Like, absolutely insane.
Oh yeah. The same was going to happen. I grew up in both coasts, upstate New York, and then also in Washington State and along the Columbia River in Washington State. And I used to play baseball tournaments in a place called the Dalles, Oregon. And that's where there's huge data centers. And that's where like all the cities and the municipal, like, water is going to these data centers, like the electricity, the grid, and things like that. And people have gotten upset over that. I think the Oregonian actually had to sue. I don't know who it was, but the Oregonian sued either the municipality, the government, or they sued the tech companies. I think it was more the government, in order to get the data on how much energy and water that these places were actually consuming and drawing away from the town, the city, and the people. And it's insane. Yeah. So that it's definitely, like, when you say that, you're spot on. When you say that, what they're doing is all this energy and this climate crisis and things like that. It's really, well, we need more energy for ourselves. Like, screw you, the rest of the people. Like, we need all this to make our digital gulag, whole digital control system infrastructure to work. And we need you to sign up to that and digital ID stuff. Yeah. So we're going to take all of that. But at the same time, now we'll give you a little piece of the pie, but we're going to take a huge chunk of the pie. But I mean, that's not the only thing, agenda for the whole climate thing, because there's a million different other things to it. But it's just one of those things of just major corporate and government capture and public partnerships. The corporatism, the fascism, and just screwing the little guy.
Yes, and I want to ask you about the poly crisis, how they're going to be implementing all this stuff. They always use false flag operations, crises. Cyber, it's interesting. Cyber Polygon recently wrapped up, and no one said a peep about it. I haven't had time to do a deep dive. Initially, at first glance, nothing really looks interesting, but I'm sure they discussed or maybe did simulations of a lot of stuff that's going to happen soon. And you had this story every day. You see these stories. MoneyGram confirmed a cyber attack behind its days-long outage. It was reported, considering their massive customer base, this could have far-reaching repercussions for many people. And many financial experts that I follow are saying there's going to be some sort of crisis. Even a return guest, hopefully, that I'll be having. They asked me to have him on again. Robert Kaplan. He's plugged into the globalist sort of. He's like the historian, but hey, he does some interesting work. The theme of his next book, I don't have the title with me, but it deals with like poly crisis, multiple crises. And that's interesting. His book is going to be published in January. And so you see this theme coming up now: world war, cyber attacks, famines, you name it, supply chains, blah, blah, blah. How do you think, and so some of the financial experts that I follow, they say there's going to be some crisis, and they're going to introduce the CBDC. You're going to have like the old monies, old dollar, the old euro, old whatever currency, old debt, and it's going to create this new system. And they're just going to sort of forget about the old system, and then everyone's going to get sort of like money in their account, UBI type stuff, CBDC, and that's how they're going to transition us. Your thoughts on, other thoughts on what the future the road ahead looks.
To start off with, why no one's really said a peep about Cyber Polygon is, I reported on that it was coming back before it, and I was looking forward to covering it. But the thing is, they haven't made it as of yet publicly available, like any of what the talks were going down. So it was two sources to look at for that. One is Bizone, bi.zone, which does cybersecurity for Sberbank and the Russian banks, which has always been a part of Cyber Polygon. This year it was the first year in 2 years that the event took place, and it's without the World Economic Forum. And they actually kind of almost scrubbed almost every single mention of the World Economic Forum from this year's Cyber Polygon, apart from one quote from Klaus Schwab about previous editions. And so again, this year it was not held in Moscow as it normally had been. It was held in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, alongside the MENA ISC, which is the Middle East, North Africa Information Security Conference, I believe. So that's the other one. MENA ISC is the other source. Bizone, MENA ISC. So I've been looking at those sources every day for an update to see what they've got going on with Cyber Polygon. In the past, what I'm seeing is that, at least with MENA ISC, is that they publish like maybe a month later. So there might be still some time. I mean, in the future, we might see some of those sessions, or at least the keynote speech by the Bizone CEO, whatever, that was at the event in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, the MENA ISC. Okay, so apart from that, polycrises. Yeah, I do see it. I think that, and they're all kind of really interconnected, aren't they? Because one can play off one another. So if you do have some kind of cyber tech, okay, starting back from there, they've been saying for years, all the CISA and all the Five Eyes kind of intelligence operations, and especially to do with cybersecurity. So Russia and Ukraine, that's leading to cyber attacks. It's going to mess up a lot of things. So that's national security stuff. Then it also can attack, cyber attack infrastructure, like essential infrastructure, like pipelines, like Colonial Pipeline, things like that. So that can disrupt things. So a cyber attack, a war, cyber attack, and the cyber stuff can then leach into financial stuff, collapsing financial systems. Then you also have the rise of the BRICS nations and what they want to do. You've got digital, CBDCs out over here. You've got another system over here. So it's one just kind of plays off the other. So these polycrises, it could be war, or it could be famine. It could be, I don't see famine, but the illusion of climate crisis and climate refugees and how that, what they call planetary health, because of climate change, diseases are going to spill over, and animals and things like that. Things are displaced. People are going to move to here to there. It's going to be chaos and all this stuff, but it's all by design. So these polycrises, especially immigration, war, cyber, finance, they all play into one another.
Yeah, and you see the stories, as you were saying earlier, banks being hit by attacks, hospitals, schools, every level of institution of society. And by the way, I just realized I do have an advanced edition of Robert Kaplan's book, going to be out in January. It's called Wasteland, A World in Permanent Crisis. And there's just a few chapters, and there Weimar goes global, the great powers in decline, and crowds and chaos. And it appears to be a draft copy, so it's not entirely finalized. So again, that theme, this is why I had on Ambassador Stuart Eisenstadt. That's why I have on some of these people, because you go around the room, you look through mainstream guests, non-mainstream guests, and then you can pick up signals from everyone to form you see what they're talking about, you see what we're talking about, and you can sort of form a picture. What are your thoughts on BRICS? I don't think I've asked you this before. I have guests on that are ultra pro BRICS, multipolarity, others that criticize it. I just feel the whole BRICS multipolar world it's almost like UN World Government 3.0. You had League of Nations, that didn't catch on. World War I League of Nations. You had World War II United Nations, Bretton Woods system, dollar world currency. That seems to be dying. Petrodollar 1971 was the first sort of like massive blow to it, and that's spent. And now they need a new system, and they need people to buy into it. They need people to be like, oh yeah, wow, and I feel like BRICS is doing that. And the people are tired of the Western Empire, so it's a really good way to get people to buy into it. Like, yes, the Western system is going down, and now the third world, the global South, yeah, it's our day in the sun. But then if you look at the current developed infrastructure of the whole BRICS system, it's very technocratic. They're all down with Agenda 2030, QR codes, injunctions. This was it Bertrand Russell said, digital currencies. And so I really don't. I actually view in many ways BRICS as moving us quicker towards this totalitarian world state. Your thoughts?
It's basically exactly what you said. Like basically taking the words out of my mouth is that I don't know. Numbers, finance, things. I'm not totally in tune with that. I try to look at it as patterns in the overall picture kind of thing. And you're exactly right. What my conclusion is, it doesn't matter if it's coming from the West or the East. You got the China model, you got the Ukraine Dia app model, you got the Estonian thing, you got, whatever. They're still pushing through the digital public infrastructure, the digital technological base foundation architecture is put in place. And so, it's whether it has Eastern characteristics or Western characteristics, it doesn't really matter. The whole thing is, it's going back to that World Economic Forum predictions for the future in 2030. 8 predictions. The U.S. is no longer a superpower; it's a multi-power kind of thing. And this is one of the ways you get there, through that finance system. And yeah, I understand why people are not happy with the petrodollar and what the U.S. and everything has done with it. And then, but you look at the whole China model, and is that better? Is that good? And Saudi Arabia and joining in, it's in Russia, and so yeah, it's the same. No matter what, the infrastructure is being built. That's like fundamental to everything. Is the infrastructure is there, so that allows whatever system you can do that. You can do that, but at least as long as it's interoperable, then there's something even more higher up and global than that. That's like someone's going to get rich off this. If we can play both sides, we can fund both sides. No matter what, we can invest here, we can invest there. We're going to make a lot of money because everyone's on the same system. It's interoperable, and yeah, with the decline of the petrodollar, it just opens up different areas to exploit that.
Yeah, I ultimately see those two systems coming together to converge. Many of the elite Anthony Sutton and others have said the goal has always been convergence, one world government. East and West put it together, and I feel like that's where we're reaching that capstone moment. And BRICS, they're talking about BRICS parliament. When Bretton Woods was it Keynes who said they had this idea of the IMF to create a Bancor, one world currency called the Bancor. That didn't take place, but it's almost like BRICS is the third iteration now. You might get a new world organization out of BRICS, or it might be this sort of decentralized, seemingly asymmetric system where you still have the UN. They want to reform it with the Parliamentary Assembly. You'll have BRICS, you'll have SCO, EU. They're all going to sort of come together like this octopus web, and that's going to be our world totalitarian state.
You know what, this makes me always question, and I don't always have the answer to it, but I question all the time. I ask other people, when I'm on shows and things, of what they think about it, is that the people who are pushing these kinds of agendas, these are agendas that are taking decades to form and take place, and a lot of them are going to be dead before it ever comes to fruition. So what is it? Why are they so hell-bent and driven on going towards these things if they're not going to see it to the end? Like, is it just for their own legacy? Is it they think that like maybe in the future they're going to have some kind of digital immortality? Or is it because, no, we're just I'm looking after myself and maybe my kids or whatever, and this is what we want for that. But when megalomaniacs, global maniacs, and then it gets to the other psychology of maybe they have some kind of messianic complex, thinking they're really actually doing good for the world, and are either like some kind of narcissistic, or maybe having even some other thing where they can't really have empathy or they have trouble associating. They kind of disassociate, maybe some other kind of neurological issues. I don't know what you're like. I'm turning the table here to ask you about that, but I don't know what, like, when you try to get into the motivations of something, of a plan that's so long in the making and that you're going to be long dead before it ever comes to pass. What's like, why do that?
Oh, so now we're going beyond the Overton window, Tim. Let's get metaphysical. I was going to sort of bring up like solutions and what do we do, and my spiritual solution, and this is one of my favorite views, and a lot of people in all media don't agree with me because I take this from a very serious, like fundamentalist Christian biblical worldview, and I've made the point just as you have. If you look at it from a secular perspective, it doesn't make sense because the Rockefellers died, Kissinger just died, all these people are dying. And so there is some force beyond humans that is there, an entity or force that is driving this agenda for centuries, for millennia. And so all these people come and go, and so you have to think everything that's coming to fruition, all these plans of world government and all of this, it's taken thousands of years to build. There's got to be some controlling force that is still sticking around when the Rothschilds and Rockefellers die to continue this plan forward. And the only explanation for me is it's a Lucifer. It's literally what the Bible says. It's Satan. There's a real angel running around the planet with his other fallen angels. Because it says the Bible that he's the prince of the power of the air. When he offered Jesus the 40 days in the desert, I'll give you the kingdoms of the world. So that implied that he manages I'm sure like there's some demon or angel that's in charge of Eurasia, the collective Kremlin, and there's one in China, and then there's one in the West. Or I think Mark Poncio talks about the occultocracy. He's a former occultist, and he says that the ruling elites, which are global, they're connected from east to west, and I think they are into the occult.
Well, this is like the idea of the archons and the jinn. Of old, yeah, because it's something that enters into the consciousness, or maybe what others may argue into the bloodline, which is something that is already inherent in it, but it makes them more susceptible to be kind of receiver for this kind of information. But when you think about where do ideas and thoughts and consciousness come from, whether it's from the ether or somewhere else, like if there is the one an infinite creator that's sending out information, and if there's other dark forces sending out information, then who's going to pick that up? Who's going to receive that? And who's more susceptible to that? Because I've dabbled in psychedelics and in altered states of consciousness and quite a bit, and I've followed. I've paid attention to a lot of different researchers. Stanislav Grof was one of them, and we liken consciousness to like a radio signal. It's like if you smash it in the brain. So if you smash the radio, does the signal stop? So like in other words, does consciousness is an epiphenomenon of the brain, or is it something that's all around us? Okay, if it's something that's all around us, where does that signal come from, and who's saying what into whom, and where do you get your ideas from? Where does the thought come from? Is it yours, or does it come from somewhere else? And I think as we're talking here more metaphysical, that I guess some of these people, it's coming from some kind of other entity that is not good at all. It's more evil in spiritual nature.
Yeah, I view it as we all are our spirits. So when we die, you cannot. They'll never be able to upload. It's our spirit. Only God has access to that in the operating system, and so there's no technology that will ever enable, like Ghostbusters, to capture your spirit, and that is us. And then you have the fallen angels, which are also concrete, beings, and there's some way of interacting. People talk about when you do psychedelics or you get drunk, or even if you don't do any of that stuff. I've known people that have gone to the astral plane and stuff. So there's a way to commune with these spirits. By the way, I had on a recent guest. I don't know if you ever heard of Paul F. Austin.
Oh yeah, from Third Wave. Is that?
Yeah, he was recently on the show. I read his book, and he talks about. I actually bought. I have the books right here behind me. Let me pull them up. Based on his the interview with him, his line of thinking for me was fascinating how I had no idea. He was talking about cybernetics and LSD and how the LSD was it psychedelics played a huge role in the developing of the computers. He mentioned Stuart Brand, and then he mentioned Fred Turner from Countercultural to Cyberculture. So I got that book, and then I came across another one called "What the Dormouse Said: How the '60s Counterculture Shaped the Personal Computer Industry." And so I think that's a fascinating link to see, because I'm reading Dave McGowan's Laurel Canyon. So you see there's something between the military intelligence, the theosophic New Age occult, Scientology, and music, and then now cybernetics and computing. And so it's like all of this stuff somehow is connected. And any thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's where you get the men who stare at goats. When you start to look at government and remote sensory viewing and telekinesis and telepathy and things like that. No, it fascinates me. No, I'm convinced through my own psilocybin mushrooms that's my entheogen of choice. And I've had conversations with other things that, I try to think like, well, is that coming from me? Is that coming from somewhere else? Is that from me? No, there's things out there. Like it's like I actually wrote a story a couple years ago on Sociable about cyberdelic kind of things, and how it's like receiving a download of information from somewhere, and the voice, the things that talk to you, it's like it's, at least in my experience, it's been like in biblical verse terms. Like one thing that a few years back I went on a little journey, and the mushroom told me, like, a question is a seed, plant it, its fruits shall be your answer. And I was thinking of the line, Jesus, like, by their fruits you shall know them. If you want to know what someone's about, plant the seed, let it grow, and then see what that's all about. That brought me into also looking up researchers like Jordan Maxwell and William Cooper and stuff like that. Those are big early heroes of mine. Sorry to go up on that a little bit, but talking about the other entities and things around, and how, Silicon Valley. I mean, Steve Jobs was talking about how psychedelics, and almost everybody in Silicon Valley microdoses or whatever, and that's how some of these breakthroughs come from there.
Or, well, from their initially their macro doses. And Paul F. Austin, like, for me, it was fascinating, that discussion. I'm not for really, the use of, I follow the Bible. It says, don't get drunk, don't be sober. But fascinating what Paul Austin was saying, this history of Stuart Brand and Steve Jobs mentioning, I think he mentioned Stuart Brand, and I think they all did LSD. And I did want to also, I guess, and what you were saying that kind of made me, I used to listen way back in the day, Monster Magnet, Dave Windorf. I saw them play in Michigan probably 20 plus years ago. I drove out from Chicago to Muskegon, Michigan, to see Monster Magnet play. And it was interesting to see there was not a big crowd. And I was like literally right there, right the stage, and Windorf was like literally right in front of me with his leather pants. I've been actually thinking of contacting him. I saw him do a podcast like a year or two ago. I almost got Jazz Goldman of Killing Joke on the podcast, but then he almost died in Mexico in a drowning during COVID. And now like the band, I don't think Killing Joke is dead. The drummer, I think, just passed, and the guitarist just passed. And so end of that story. And he's a huge occultist. He's said that our goal, he was a product of Tavistock, he admitted, and that basically, and that one of their goals is to eliminate Christianity. But let me ask you then, when it comes to solutions, all media is talking a lot about solutions. There's the Greater Reset stuff and all that. I'll probably be going in January to the Greater Reset in here in Mexico, because there are going to be a few new faces. Ryan Christian, I think, will be down here, and Ruben Luengas, great Mexican journalist, and who's the other person? Aaron Day, who I've interviewed on TNT.
Oh, he's brilliant.
Yeah, he's amazing on CBDC and Intocracy. I really defer to him. When I look at the stuff, he's one of the few people. Patrick Wood, Aaron Day, and others. But the solutions, my solution will be different from other people's. I feel like things have already been solved. Jesus, whether in my time or other time, my solution is Jesus. So I'm just thinking of eternity. We're all going to die anyway. So even if you create your prepper's paradise, you're still going to die. So even if you do, survive the globalist onslaught, And so I kind of live every day as best as I can, go on living, and Jesus is my solution. But in the meantime, I do want to, like you, live outside an urban area, because soon everything is going to be digital proletariat infrastructure, and so I need to have some food, a well with water, a network of people, because I feel this is inevitable. So your thoughts? Do you feel like this is just coming? There's no way to stop it, and then what are the best ways to sort of mitigate, push back, and or survive it?
I mean, it's looking at patterns, and that's how you can kind of forecast the future, and that's what governments and corporations spend a whole lot of money and time and effort into doing. They imagine, they play out every single scenario, and what happens in this scenario, what would we do, what's our contingency plan, and things like that. My solution is, man, it's so personal. Just like you said, you can have Jesus. I would also say know thyself. In order to really confront, or I say enfrentar, be in front of whatever is coming, so that you're able to batten the hatches when the gale comes, the storm. But I'm not I don't consider myself a really solutions-based person. I don't tell people what to do. I don't try to even advise unless asked, because I always believe in free will. So what I'm doing and what we're doing now is, this is my solution always when I get asked this question, is just to keep talking about it, spread awareness. I would have, younger me, I would have said, of course, I never registered to vote, because when I was 18, I was like, well, if you register to vote, then you could be drafted for the war and things like that. And I was really into John Lennon and didn't like the whole anti-Vietnam stuff. And this is the late 90s. But so, if you're a voting person, yeah, on a local level, you can make some differences there. But just being aware and listening to all the hypocrisy and the BS that's coming out, if they're going to roll out these things, these digital gulags, infrastructure, and anything to control your life, is just to just get away from it. Just either reject it outright or not be a part of it. I know that in many circles, it's exit and build. That's an amazing thing. You know what? I have nothing against it at all. Nothing, but not everything works for everyone. Because I always think about the people that have, well, I have a family, I have this many kids, I've got a mortgage, my job is here, and I have to do this. Okay, what happened during COVID? That was kind of like the little test. I wanted to go see my family in the United States at Christmas time during COVID and the lockdowns, and that's 2 weeks before I was scheduled to fly to the United States. The Colombian government said, in order to come back into the country, you need proof of vaccination. That Christmas, that year, was the last time I would have got to see my nephew, 14 years old, who was dying of leukemia. It was his last Christmas. He died January 5th, just after that. I canceled my flight to go and see him just because I did not want to submit. I didn't want to take another injection, because you know what? That could have been another death in the family. It could have been another, my own personal thing. It could have ruined other things. So it broke my freaking heart to do that. I couldn't be there for him, and sorry. I was so mad at the Colombian government just for doing that. Just 2 weeks before I was going to go see him, and so as a consolation, I thought, okay, maybe, all right, Christmas Eve, I'm going to go to the jungle out here. I'm going to go to the forest, into a park, and just walk around and, maybe, get some peace. I couldn't even do that. The freaking guard at the national park said, no, you can't enter the forest without proof of vaccination. So I guess, as a solution, what some of the things take is sacrifice, and just knowing who you are, and being true to yourself and sticking to your principles. I guess that's the best kind of advice or solution that I have.
And I think the example you just gave shows the true, like, how sinister and evil the nature of this thing that it is. And like how you described, that's how I viewed the Mexican government, the Croatian government. Like I was locked, I never took a PCR. I was never going to take any test. And if that meant I can't leave Mexico, my home, so be it, for years, or see anyone. I actually had imagined scenarios like, what if my mother or father passed, and they had the funeral, but we still had the PCR test vaccine regime. Like, I'm not going. And then how would, the reaction, the social consequence from friends and family, like, you're not going to go see, to your parents. It's just as insane what we're going through. And I think this is, we're going to be seeing a lot of this stuff going forward. I interviewed recently Ned Ryan. He wrote a great book, American Leviathan, the Administrative Totalitarian State. And one of the things he talks about is disruption. I think it's also everything you said, I agree, and disrupt. So I think with these systems that come into place, at least initially or for a good time, they're not going to be perfect. Like you detailed experiences, Colombia, my experiences here in Mexico. And we're going to have, I think, a lot of ways initially, at least, to disrupt. And so don't do the QR code menus. Don't use the smartphones. Get a Google phone. Get a dumb phone. Don't have a phone. And just disrupt the system as in many ways as possible. And I think we'll be able to do that for a very, very long time and make life difficult, even for the local apparatchik, who say, oh, you got to have this. And it's like, you can find a little footnote in the document that says, no, I don't. Look right here. And then you're going to get, but what it takes to do that, from what you mentioned, is we have to think about these things, prepare. Like Jeremy Kauffman said, when he confronted the FBI, he said, I was prepared for this by living in a place like New Hampshire and having had lesser but similar experiences beforehand. He had the courage and the strength to confront the Nazis, or the commies or whatever. And so I guess those are my last thoughts. Do you have any other final thought for us?
No, it's another kind of mantra that came to me meditating and things was something that said, live in the moment, remember the past, be mindful of the future. I mean, it's just a way to absorb, take in all information you can, know yourself, know what's going on around you, just be aware of everything. And then in that way, you can be prepared. You can map out your own scenarios. You can see little glimpses of the future. And you can also envision and imagine how you'd be in that future. And, a lot of perception and thought can manifest in reality. So that's kind of the perspective I take.
Yeah. And for just preparing, I think
and
it's
faith.
just, yeah. And it's just common sense. Like, just wherever you are, just take a look around, look at your resources, what you can do, do what you can with what you got where you're at. You don't need, the conferences or webinars. Just take a look around, do an assessment, and then see what can be done from there. Can you get some land or use somebody else's land, or find the solutions around you? It's really just common sense stuff. And all throughout human history, you look back to my forefathers, our forefathers, none of them took any courses on anything. They just instinctually, in that moment, did what they needed to survive. And so, what's the Hunger Games quote? May the odds ever be in your favor, in our favor. Tim, all your links are in the description, but what are the best places to find you, projects and that you have and whatnot?
Oh yeah, thanks. So the website for all the reporting and the articles is sociable.co. Then you can also find on X, Twitter, at the Sociable. But the place where I post the most things and I get the most interaction and where I try to be more current is at Tim Hinchliffe. That's actually it's the same for X, Getter, and Gab. Even though I'm not too active on the other ones, I'm still checking in on those as well.
Maybe one of these days our paths will cross in the magic forest or something.
I'd love that.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for being on Geopolitics, Nibar.
My pleasure. Thank you.